Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 1998 Represent. On this episode, we're taking a look at Saving Private Ryan, one of the biggest films of the year, as far as like box office gross as well as just impact. I think it was like the second highest grossing movie of that year, right behind Armageddon. Armageddon made a little bit more money, but Saving Private Ryan ended up coming out being one of the greatest movies of all time. I didn't get to see it initially in theaters, and I've only ever seen it in pieces. I probably have seen like 90% of the movie, like through just seeing clips or seeing it at like it being on, like when it was like on like cable or something like that. But I never sat down in one setting and just watched the entire film. So I ended up watching it on Netflix, and when I started this series, I actually found a copy on DVD. I still have it sealed, but a sealed DVD copy of it, just in case the movie like went off of streaming or something like that. I would be able to watch it. But it's on Netflix right now. I think it was on Paramount Plus a little bit earlier in the year. But just got done just literally like minutes ago, watching it on Netflix all the way through, and it's an amazing movie, one of the best movies of 1998, easily one of Steven Spielberg's best movies overall, and I think just one of the best movies kind of all time. It's an amazing film. Definitely a very kind of gruesome and intense movie. It definitely really kind of just showcases like the horrors of World War II. Um, yeah, and so we're gonna get into. I have my notes here for it. We're gonna start going through those notes and checking it out. So let's see. Saving Private Ryan, first released July 24th, 1998. Like I said, it does an amazing job of just showcasing how brutal and intense this war was. I think a lot of us have probably up to that point had studied World War II in high school, maybe, or middle school or something like that. But it was probably part of a, like, at least for me, it was part of just a broader like American history class, so it was kind of glossed over. We kind of got like just the cliff notes of World War II, like what triggered World War II for us, like what were some of like the maybe like the key battles and like what were some of the things going on. And I don't think those classes like really dove all that deep into the war. So I think for a lot of people like up to this point, like they didn't exactly know how intense this war actually was. So I remember this also being a big deal when it came out because a lot of the veterans that were actually in World War II, if they were in their say like their 20s when the war was going on, they would have been probably like in their like mid to late 70s, maybe their 80s when the movie came out. So I know a lot of veterans went to see the movie. A lot of veterans took their grandchildren to see the movie as well. I remember it making a lot of kind of like national news about them interviewing veterans after seeing the movie, and a lot of veterans just being in tears after seeing it, just like having seen like reliving some very intense moments of their lives, but then also maybe kind of reminiscing over maybe some of the like their squad mates or things like that. So like it's like a terrible situation, a terrible war, but that you have these soldiers bonding and stuff like that. The movie covers that pretty well also. But you kind of have like it's almost like a best of times, worst of times kind of thing. You're in this really awful war, but then you make a lot of times these veterans like kind of like basically like just like bond together during their like deployment and potentially like, go on to be like lifelong friends, that kind of stuff. So I think that movie it definitely brought back a lot of those kind of memories for those veterans. So I remember like seeing and reading a lot of news articles when it came out about like veterans taking their families to see this, like children, grandchildren, that kind of thing. And like I said, veterans being in tears based on like how the movie was like presented and things like that. Like it's very well shot. It doesn't really shy away from any of the kind of graphic nature of the war. It's like the whole Omaha Beach like sequence is just it like very intense. Like you have people getting like just getting shot, getting blown up. I remember there's like at one point there's so much blood in the water. Tom Hanks's character, I think he gets his helmet knocked off at one point, and when he goes to pick it back up, it's full of like just like red water. At that point, he like dumps it out, puts it back on, and it's just incredibly bloody, incredibly violent. You see just people, like I said, getting blown up, getting shot, getting burned, like all kinds of. It's just very intense, very graphic. Let's go back to our notes here. Um, it was apparently inspired by, in my research for this, inspired by books by Stephen Ambrose, and then when Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks took interest in it, they wanted to make sure that the movie was as accurate as they could make it. So like just as far as like costuming and the weapons and like kind of like all of that, they wanted to do justice to the kind of like, if you want to call it the source material, but the situations that these soldiers were actually in. And I think they did an amazing job, kind of like representing that. Or Steven Spielberg like did a excellent job directing it, and then like Tom Hanks' acting is really good in this as well. It's got an amazing cast. We'll go through the cast here shortly as well. I remember reading that the Omaha Beach sequence took around or said over 4 weeks to film. It cost $12 million. And it had 1,500 extras just playing the kind of like the landing force at Normandy, as well as like the other like soldiers in the area. In that sequence, I remember when this movie came out. Like I said, I didn't see it initially in theaters, but my friend of mine saw it and told me that that whole sequence was basically just a slap in the face, and I kind of had to have him clarify that, because I'm like, do you mean a slap in the face like it was disrespectful, or a slap in the face like it was just kind of just like a wake up call to actually how violent this thing is? And he said it was the second one. It was that it was just like basically that's not the opening sequence. The opening sequence is Matt Damon's character kind of going to the Normandy cemetery slash memorial. The movie's bookended that way, where it opens up with his character going to this memorial slash cemetery, and then it ends at that as well. So it's bookended that way. But right after the sequence with or the older version of him going to this memorial, it goes right into the kind of like the Normandy landing at Omaha Beach, and it's like you said, they're like, it's just so intense. Um, I would recommend, like I said, it's on Netflix. If you have Netflix, I would recommend watching it there. You can probably find a clip of the Omaha Beach scene on YouTube or something like that as well. But just a kind of like almost like a welcome to this movie kind of thing, and like it kind of sets the tone for the entire movie. I mean, like there's sequences throughout the movie that aren't as intense, but the Omaha Beach sequence is incredibly intense, and then the kind of like last major battle that they have in the movie is also just incredibly tense as well. Let's see what you have here. This is, like I said earlier, second highest grossing movie of 1998, followed or right behind Armageddon. This movie also, according to my research and just kind of theorizing, definitely led to there being a lot more World War II content across like multiple forms of media. The movie definitely created or sparked interest, or people getting reinterested in World War II. So like after this movie came out, a year later we got the very first Medal of Honor game. I think that was on PlayStation, the PS1. And then a couple years after that, we got Call of Duty. There was like Pearl Harbor came out shortly after that, and it kind of just created an interest in World War II that, at least like, I think that was the first time that I had definitely noticed it. Was like after this movie came out, there I was noticing a lot more World War II like video games specifically. There's kind of always been World War II games um, prior to this, but I think they were more kind of like a niche thing, like a niche kind of thing, where there was like the I forget what it's called, but I think it was like it may be Close Combat or something like that. It was like I think a Microsoft thing, Microsoft game. But a lot of the kind of World War II games before that were more like they were on PC. They were kind of more geared toward like like history buffs and things like that. And then after this movie came out, those games became much more mainstream. Like I said, we got the Medal of Honor series, we got Call of Duty. Because the first several Call of Duty games were World War II based until they started moving it to a more modern direction. But yeah, Call of Duty, Medal of Honor, definitely more interest in those kinds of things, as well as more movies about World War II, more shows like Band of Brothers, which is also a Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks kind of. They created that series as well, and that came out a few years after this movie. So I can definitely see this movie as being like a catalyst for just people getting interested in that time period. Let's see here. Let's go take a look at the cast. The cast in this movie is incredible. So I'm just going to pull up the cast here. I'm just going to list some names off really quickly. So we have, of course, we have Tom Hanks. We have Edward Burns, Tom Sizemore, Jeremy Davies, Vin Diesel, Adam Goldberg, Barry Pepper, Giovanni Ribisi, Matt Damon, Ted Danson in this movie, Bryan Cranston, Paul Giamatti, and just so on and so forth. Just a huge ensemble cast. Um, just like a lot of just huge big name actors or people that eventually went on to becoming big name actors. Like I think like Vin Diesel. This I don't know exactly like where this falls in his filmography, but it was like a couple years before he really broke out with the Fast and the Furious. Um, you have of course like Matt Damon was kind of starting to kind of emerge after this because like he had done Goodwill Hunting like right before this or like shortly before this, and then he's kind of gone on to obviously do like a lot of stuff. So just a huge ensemble cast, like definitely an amazing cast for this movie. We're gonna go over the plot now. So like I said earlier in the video, the plot starts off with Matt Damon's character, who is Private James Ryan, going to the Normandy Memorial, and then it cuts right into the Omaha Beach sequence. Tom Hanks's character and like his squad eventually take the beach, and they're setting up a base there. And then it cuts back to I don't know where, but they're going through and doing all the casualty reports. And I think somebody that's typing these reports up notices that three brothers, like from the same family, out of a family of four brothers, have died in the war, and of course they go to, and this is Matt Damon's character's brothers essentially, so they go to, and that's when the mission becomes Saving Private Ryan. So they basically reassign Tom Hanks and his squad to find Private Ryan and bring him home. So basically, like I said, like in the poster, the mission is a man. They are now essentially trying to go and find Private Ryan and get him home. There's a lot of really good kind of commentary where the squad is like, "Why are we risking our all eight of us? I think it's eight at the time, eight of us for one, like for one private. Like this doesn't make a lot of sense." But yeah, they then eventually pick up. I had to bring up the actor's name here. Let me see. Was it Adam Goldberg? Was it him? Yeah, so it's like they eventually bring on Jeremy Davies as like a translator. He speaks French. His character speaks French and German, so they bring him aboard to kind of translate. And then they end up getting into this other village where they run into another squad. Paul Giamatti's character is there, and there's a sequence where they want, there's like a family that's basically like in this war torn town that wants their, like be like, hey, take our kid, and the Diesel's character eventually like, they're like, oh yeah, we'll bring her to the next town. He gets shot, and then there's like a whole like shootout. There's a really cool sequence where you have two snipers on, one American sniper, one German sniper, and it does a scene where they're both basically like a split second away from shooting each other, and the American sniper shoots first, like shoots right through the scope and like hits the other guy. That's one of the more intense sequences as well, and I think eventually they roll up to. It's funny because David Fillion is also in this movie, and he plays another Private Ryan, but it's like James Ryan, and then there's James Francis Ryan. So they basically it's like a mistaken identity thing where they find him and then they realize that this is not the Private Ryan that they're looking for, kind of thing. They continue going on and traveling. They eventually come across like a gun emplacement that Tom Hanks' character wants to get rid of, and they end up losing in this battle, a small battle. Their medic, who's played by Giovanni Ribisi, he gets shot, and they take a German soldier prisoner. And I think like in the credits, the character is referred to as Steamboat Willie, and there's talk of like, well, we should just probably like execute this guy, but then Tom Hanks is like, no, like we're not gonna do that. We're gonna like, or like we can't take this guy prisoner, so they blindfold him. They're like, hey, walk 1,000 paces that direction. You're gonna get picked up by something or whatever. Um, and then that is then eventually when they get to the village where Matt Damon's character is, and basically as soon as they get there, they're like, hey, we're bringing you home. And then he kind of is like, no, like I'm staying here with my with my squad here because like he's like these are my brothers now. We're gonna stay, and then they end up staying, and there's a huge battle in this other war torn town. It's another very intense battle. You have a lot of the squad gets killed off. Tom Hanks' character gets shot by gets shot by Steamboat Willie because I guess he gets picked up by his other German soldiers, and the translator is kind of at the point where he's just like, well, I don't want to say he's not like pacifistic necessarily, but he is kind of definitely out of his element because he's basically like supposed to be he's not that type of soldier, but then and then he ends up killing Steamboat Willie. And the message that Tom Hanks' character gives to Matt Damon is like he's like earn this, like earn like a good life, that kind of thing. And then it cuts back to the present day where they are Matt Damon's character is at the gravestone or at least marker for Tom Hanks' character. And he's asking his wife, he's like, hey, am I a good man? Have I led a good life? And she's like, yes. John Williams did the music for for the film, and it's very good music. It's almost one of the John Williams scores where it's not immediately recognizable as it being John Williams, but just the fact that Steven Spielberg and John Williams work so frequently together, or at least he used to. I don't know if John Williams, I think like is still making music. I think he was like was going to retire, and then he really didn't. I don't really know, but so this is definitely John Williams music where it definitely feels like it's John Williams doing like kind of just like war music necessarily, or like emulating the kind of like military music that you would hear like in these kind of like during this time period. So it's a very good score, and it's all like because usually John Williams you can recognize pretty much immediately without really be like, oh, that sounds like John Williams, and you're probably right. But this is one where I wasn't surprised that it was John Williams because I'm like, this probably is John Williams, but it definitely sounds a little bit different than his normal stuff. But yeah, John Williams in the music, just like, I can't say a whole lot about this movie that probably hasn't already been said, but it's an amazing film. Like I said, I didn't get to see it in theaters. I think they're doing a 25th anniversary re-release. I'm not sure when that comes out, so I might check that out as well. But I definitely knew when I started this series that this is one of the films that was going to get covered. Like I said a while ago, like even like I think it was like maybe just like right after I started the series, I found the DVD at Walmart and just ended up buying it. It was like $5. It was in those like one of those $5 DVD bins. And sometimes those bins have some really good movies in there. I got like Speed on Blu-ray that way as well. So But bought it just in case if it got yanked from streaming, I would still have it for this series. But I think that's going to do it for this video. We'll be back again in a few more days, probably be doing another video game or something like that. Don't exactly know when that's going to be yet. And then we're going to be doing this until the end of the year. And then starting next year, we're going to just pivot the entire series to be general 1990. So covering the other 9 years of the decade. We'll definitely be covering anything we don't get to from 1998 from this year. We'll be covering in that other series as well. But that's going to do it for this video. So remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We'll see you again next time. Thanks again for watching. Take care and have a good one.